Hiya, Hinsters, and welcome back to my awkward vlog diary type series that I have started. Part 2, Gemini season, my reading back series. And as I mentioned in the last episode, the first one, Cancer season, was Cancer? No, not Cancer season, the Taurus season. Um, as I mentioned, then it might not be viewed by anyone. It might just be more a kind of personal diary type thing for me, but also could be quite interesting for any, especially Cancer risings, because I am a Cancer rising, or just anyone in general for whom this may resonate for, and it's very hot. But anyway, this is the Gemini season reading back episode, and I'm going to try to keep it as quick, snappy, and cash as possible. It's really hot. I've got the old journal back out. By the way, 1 second. I had a lovely friend who I made during my time working at a wine bar. And I won't mention her name because maybe she doesn't want to be mentioned online. But she got me this surprise gift during this here Gemini season, and it was so funny because the day that she gave me this was the very same day that I wrote in the last page of this journal, and I was already thinking and feeling, oh shit, I need to get a new one that's like pretty and nice as well. And lo and behold, a friend came bearing that. So that was really lovely. And like in the last one, I'm going to kind of talk about the good, the bad, and the weird. Um, for me this Gemini season. And let's start with the bad, shall we? Because Gemini season for me is always a 12th house season as a Cancer rising, which is the house of bad spirit and curses and all that jazz, right? And some kind of bad things did happen, yeah. I cut my thumb on a exploding glass. That was great. That was like new moon vibes. It did bleed quite a bit. Nothing serious, but it didn't stop bleeding for a while. Also, I continued to buy without my means, so not living within my means, and do lots of stuff. I wrote a lot in here about like um, anxiety eating and like eating my feelings. And yes, the 12th house is the house of bad spirit, and it can bring this type of mental bad spirit, like anxiety eating, or eating your feelings. But interestingly, the 12th house ruler for me is Mercury, and Mercury was transiting Taurus, the 11th house of friends. So I am going to talk a lot about friends in a bit. But basically, yes, this Gemini season was full of dates and giggles and lovers and tipples, despite the bad experiences, the bad spirit. And by the way, share your experience below if you're a Cancer rising or if you resonate anyway with anything that I say here, or just share your general experience with me of Gemini season this year of 2023. And there is a lot that I wrote here. I write a lot, but some things don't need to be said, and also I don't have time to say everything, and it's better to keep some things to ourselves, right? To kind of cherish some of the things. And yeah, back to bad spirit. I actually, as a kid, had this condition. I think I've talked about this before on my channel, maybe a year or 2 years ago. I talked about it. But I used to have this condition. I think they call it invitigo, which is like a kind of nervousness condition, where you like lick your lips the more nervous you get, and it kind of eventually creates like a redness, a rash, um, and it can look pretty awful if it gets bad. And I even got a nickname of lipstick at school because of it, and because it was that bad. And I remember the doctor or the GP asking me if anything bad was going on at home or something to that effect, and I was like, no. Um, Obviously, there were some things going on, but it was possibly the one of the triggers of that condition. And interestingly, I felt that resurface as I was in the midst of during Gemini season, like um, approaching to hand my notice in at work and still waiting for and mobilizing to get my visa to work abroad and sorting out a host of other things and being so financially downtrodden, like all of that kind of caused this sensation in my lips again, where I felt like it was coming back, and it was really weird. But I just it only lasted like a day or a day and a half, but it did return. And I found that really interesting. You know, Mercury is my third house ruler. Mercury is the god of nervous systems, and the moon on that day that I wrote about this and had this kind of invertigo flare up, the moon was conjunct Venus. The moon is my life path ruler, the ruler of my body. It was conjunct Venus in Cancer. Venus rules um, lips. Did you know? So that would be the lips of me, right? Venus conjunct the life path ruler. So quite a funky thing there. Also, generally, I just couldn't afford things during Gemini season. Um, I had to sometimes put stuff back, which is embarrassing, and just kind of, yeah, had to sacrifice certain things. Um, and I was in a bit of a position at work where I yeah, had to have meals at work or rely on work providing for me, which I don't like to be in that space, but sometimes that's what it is. Um, and things like not being able to commute even to work, that sort of stuff really had me quite down. And I think that's very 12th house sort of experiences. Um, yeah. And the last thing I want to mention in the terms of bad stuff that I experienced this Gemini season is like, so, well, not necessarily a bad thing, but I had for quite a few months being kind of seeing this guy very casually, but I obviously very chaotic romantically fell in love with him, and I don't think he fell in love with me, but we continued meeting and we dated and we did all the hookup stuff, and it was lush, and I mm, I was a bit delusional, I think. But anyway, I met him for the last time during this Gemini season, and it was kind of everything. I mean, that morning, because I do a daily tarot card pull for myself, where I just shuffle for a random card to come out every morning, and I write that in my journal as well. But like, the cards I got on that day was the Star and the Empress, and it was such a weird day. And the sun was trying. It was in Gemini, obviously, trine the moon in Virgo, and I am a Virgo. If you didn't know, Virgo sun, lots of planets in Virgo as well. Virgo in my third house, and I was getting so many third house local synchronicities and signs. It was so weird. Even the postman across the road, he just randomly like was like, "Hey," waving at me. It was very bizarre. But I felt such good vibes, like on my way to see this guy. Because I kind of knew it would be the last time. I think it is the last time that I would see him, and it was very lovely. It was very sexy. It was very intimate. It was gorgeous. It was also very honest. We talked about things we didn't ever talk about before. It was kind of touching, and I did sort of cry like on the way back. not gonna lie. Um, but it also kind of taught me that this part of my life, the stage that I'm in, is like letting go of things, people, which will only kind of hurt me in the end. And it's not to blame or to hate anyone or anything like that, but like just letting go um of that which is not like reciprocated in the way that I desire. Um but also to keep what I liked about it, what I loved about it, um because that is what I aspire to find in someone else who does want me in the same way in the future. So it's kind of like letting go, but also keeping hold of. And I think this is a very Gemini season thing for all of us in general, in some sense. The duality, in some sense, is very much like experienced. Um. Anyway, let's move on to like good stuff, shall we? So I spent a lot of time writing about and like appreciating and reflecting on just how much I realize and appreciate again, like how many friends I actually have. I have so many friends, like all over the world, digital friends, long distance friends, friends in my local neighborhood, friends across the city, friends in neighboring countries, and lots of old and new friends as well. And I was making actually quite a lot of new friends in this Gemini season. And you know, friends, this theme, this is really the 12th house ruler transiting Taurus in my 11th house. And the house, this is the house of good spirit. And you know, I could not this year, this month, I could not have progressed in terms of my career and sorting out the visa and everything like that, and even sometimes just eating. I could not have progressed without like the help and the emotional company of these friends, old and new, and my allies, and just like also caring and very generous colleagues at work, and just their gestures. Like I could not have got through it without them and all those moments. And I think there's too many to kind of list and mention in this video. But if anyone is like watching, like, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Um, Also, I was appreciating the air signs in my working life, especially like around me at the time. I wrote a lot about like just the humor, the hilarity, and the more social, relational kind of aspects and events that were happening at work with all these air signs and air risings, like air heavy people I was meeting or being around, and that really helped me get out of my like really negative, like bad spirit feelings. I think in general, people who have a lot of air in their chart, they're usually very witty, or they know the right things to say. They know how to lighten up the atmosphere. They know how to cut through, and they know how to ask and say the right things. Um, and just like, yeah, lighter feels and humor. Also, I found this like random um book which was like about mental health. I think it's called The Art of Feeling Better. I don't have it. It's actually packed in my suitcase now because obviously I'm leaving very soon the country, so it's packed away now. But this book was called The Art of Feeling Better or something. Um, and I just found it randomly, and apparently it's one of these books that you leave um, in a random public place when you finish reading it. So it's like a sort of pass along thing. And the 12th house, that's the 12th house expression, I think. Hidden gems. The 12th house is the house of hidden gems, hidden treasures. Um, and also, finally, I finally got to pay back most of the people who lent me money to help me get through stuff. And that I think is a good side of this here Gemini season. And eventually, of course, my visa did arrive, so I am elated about that. And I was able eventually to, yeah, get all the final stuff sorted, like booking the flight and all that jazz, and being able to finally tell people the date that I'm leaving, um, which people have been asking me for months now. Yeah. Okay, weird things to finish, some kind of weird, ooh, spooky things. The first thing might now some of the Hinsters who've been with me for a long time, or people who just know me well, will know that my favorite artist and singer of all time, forever and always, is Nelly Furtado, and I consider her to be like a guiding light for me in terms of my spiritual path and my childhood. And um, she, in this during this here Gemini season, started to suddenly get, because she'd been very dormant. I mean, now and then she would post certain things on her like Instagram, but she definitely didn't like release any music or albums or anything like that for like years. And then during this here Gemini season, suddenly she was getting more like active. I could like feel it in her stories, like hinting more and more. There was getting more like stories posted, and I just felt something is coming, bubbling up. And it was. Um, she released a new song, um, which you should check out. But that was really wonderful to witness, and it really lifted things up for me because I love Nelly Furtado, and I used to sing and dance to her in my bedroom. Yeah, and I just love the eclecticness of her music. She just spans so many genres. Not only that, but the lyrics, the vocals, the spirit of her music. Folklore is probably my favorite album by her, but I love all of her albums, obviously. But Folklore, especially, was the one that really got me through, um, those kind of teenage adolescent things. Um, Especially the song Try and songs like Forza and I don't know. I think like in similar ways, I'm very Cancerian and very moody, sad boy. Like the reason I relate to in Korean culture Han, this sense of like pent up feelings or sadness. I think it's similar thing with Nelly Furtado and her spirit and her Portuguese heritage. And is it Fado? Fado, I think they call it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this sort of folk music as well that is kind of like all rooted in saying goodbye to loved ones who are leaving on ships who you might never see again, or your loved ones who went off on a ship never returning, all those stories and experiences that inspired that particular like genre or sphere of music. I think that really is part of Nelly Furtado's spirit as well. Of course, she's a Sagittarius rising. I'm a Chiron rising. She's got so much Sag energy, and I love that energy in particular. Very inspiring, very wonderful. Anyway, yeah, and then she went to perform in Sweden as well. I wish I could have been there. One day I'll see her perform somewhere. I also received this random message one day from someone who, I don't know who this person is, but they sent me a random message um, commenting on how when they watched my video, they looked at me, they thought I had like a witch wound, money wound, and they gave me quite a lot of information. And I won't go into detail, but this really helped me in many ways. This random message from a random person about like witch wounds, and thank you for that. If you're watching, that was really helpful. Also, by the way, during Gemini season, I bumped into someone who was basically a catfish who I had been interacting with only digitally, and for some reason I kept like denying to meet in person, and then yeah, randomly bumped into them in person, and confirmed to myself, yeah, I was avoiding that for a reason, because in reality, that's definitely not someone that I wanted to be intimate with. I'm not gonna lie. It was for good measure that I had denied them. Sometimes it's like that, isn't it? Finally, then, I also, oh my god, this was so embarrassing. I also accidentally ate a colleague's lunch. It's complicated, but long story short, I accidentally ate someone's lunch and it was very embarrassing. Um, he was very hot though. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that's that. I will stop here with these ramblings. I hope it resonated for someone or was entertaining or whatever, insightful. And let me know how your Gemini season was. Did anything really bad that you want to share, that you're comfortable sharing, happen to you? Did anything really great happen? Like amazing, especially around maybe the new moon, or maybe in the middle of Gemini season when we had Venus conjunct the moon. Did anything fun, great happen for you? Did anything weird and quirky happen? Let me know. I love you, and I'll see you in the next one.